Change how I have the screen set up now. This can drop down. Pull that down so everyone can see us. Do you know how many days away we are from the NFL mock draft or NFL draft? It's
We were 3 weeks away last night.
okay. So that's 21 days is on the 27th. So we're 20 days away from the NFL draft. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We're set to go. So, oh, that's nice that everyone just saw me typing in the group me. Oh, wait. So why isn't that? What screen's being shared right now on YouTube? Okay, the wrong screen, of course. That's fantastic. So can I not switch between my tabs? Let me click on my screen and see if it pops up. I'm literally watching the YouTube, so it's on delay behind us, which is fantastic. This is not right. Slide up share. Let's go back to screen share. Let's go to, that's what I meant to do. I didn't mean to put it on my screen. I had it locked onto my screen instead of it being locked onto a specific tab. Whoops. Also, why is it not showing? I'm waiting to see if it's showing it the way I'm seeing it. So, be happy. It's not on me. Why is it not showing the? I hate Zoom with a burning passion. I have our camera set up a way so that it's covering something, but I cannot get it to do how I want it to be set up. Hmm. Just keep seeing my facial expressions in the. Give me 1 second to figure this out. How do I do this? I'm gonna go like that. So that's when it's all right. Oh, nope, I want grid view. That's what I want. Okay, it's still not. So I honestly don't know how to change this over, and that's just genuinely on me. But want to be able to see both of us at the same time. All right, it's just gonna have to be like this, to be honest. I don't know why it won't change how I have it shared, but so we're just gonna have to go like this, I guess. The way I have it on my computer looks better, but I guess whatever. Oh, whatever YouTube thinks is better, it's better. All righty, well, welcome back. It is SMC show number 24. Today we have a special though. It is our NFL mock draft special. Just to make some clarifications, we are drafting in our eyes what the best players are. The professionals may disagree with us, but we have read a lot of the professional analysis, where players should be going, where players are. So me and Dallas are gonna go through that today, give you our full first round mock draft on where players should land, what is a best fit for teams. I do have a list of what team, as you can see on PFF. I don't know if anyone can see my mouse right now. Right here, it is showing what teams need. So we are going to follow this pretty suit here. We're also going to give our opinions on what teams should be looking to draft. As you know, many teams have a lot of holes this year. A lot of the teams in the top 10 have a lot of holes. So we're going to follow them with players we think that are best suited and kind of show you what we think the first round will end up giving. But Dallas, are you excited to go? Because I know this is one of the shows I was excited for, so I'm a little sad that not everyone could have been here today, but we're gonna have a good one. So all righty. Well, to start it off, we have the first pick in the NFL draft, a team that traded up just a few weeks ago with the Chicago Bears, the Carolina Panthers. As it shows here, they do need a quarterback, a wide receiver, and an edge defender. But as PFF does say, they do need to pick a 98.4% of people from the Carolina Panthers who have done a mock draft, or just anyone in general has selected a quarterback. So they are definitely in dire need of a quarterback. Almost every analyst has them picking a quarterback. Now the conversation becomes, which quarterback do they take? There's been a lot of smoke screens. It was seemingly that CJ Stroud was the number one overall favorite just a few weeks ago. Then Bryce Young came into the conversation, and then Frank Reich yesterday said that he would love to have Anthony Richardson on the team, but the organization still feels that CJ Stroud is number one. Dallas, you're sitting right there. You're in David Tepper, their owner's seat. Which guy are you looking at? Like, who are you taking here?
For me, it's got to be CJ Stroud here. I personally think he's the best quarterback in the draft. I've been thinking this for a long time now, and he had just proven my point right. The way he played against Georgia in the college football playoff showcased his legs. I think a lot of people were worried. Well, can he run? Can he do this? I think he showed in that game he's willing to if he needs to. I don't think Ohio State needed him to run because they were so good at passing the football and just handing the football to the running back. Obviously, Alabama this year, they didn't have the skill set that they normally do, but obviously still amazing. But Bryce Young had to create a little bit more with his legs. I think CJ Stroud has that in his game. I think he's a precision passer. I think you can't go wrong with either guy, but I think CJ Stroud just is so good. He doesn't make that many mistakes out there, and Carolina will get a star quarterback in CJ Stroud.
So I do agree. I'm just going to give you the metric stats behind it. In 13 games played last year, CJ Stroud accumulated 41 touchdowns on 6 interceptions with nearly 4,000 yards passing. He was short by 400 yards, so it's close. With a 9.5 yards per attempt and a 177.7 quarterback rating, which is pretty good. Just to kind of give you a little bit of where I think CJ Stroud could struggle. CJ Stroud had quite literally some of the best receivers ever when he was at Ohio State. Marvin Harrison, Garrett Wilson, Egbuka, Jackson Smith and Jigba. And I said Garrett Wilson, who's Chris
Chris
Olave.
Olave, yeah.
Very, very good amount of players. He would be going to a Carolina team with currently Tommy Tremble, Hayden Hurst, a 32-year-old Adam Thielen. It's that Terrace Marshall. So maybe a little bit worse on the wide receiver side, but I think this is an interesting team. They did pick up Miles Sanders. So I think personally, I think it's a lot of smoke and mirrors, but I could say pretty wholeheartedly that I think CJ Stroud is their pick. Big frame quarterback, 6'3", 214 pounds, 21 years old. He's been fantastic. Heisman finalist, 21-4 as a starter. So I think he's gonna step up. So I think it is CJ Stroud personally. If I'm the GM of the Panthers, I'm definitely taking him. I feel like he's a pretty safe day one starter. So we're gonna draft CJ Stroud. On to the next pick, the Houston Texans, another team who have been in this quarterback search. I think this one's pretty easy. As many people know, if Bryce Young or CJ Stroud goes off the board, you're picking whoever's right behind him. Some of the mock drafts I've seen have Bryce Young going at 2. He is a 5'10" quarterback from the University of Alabama, had 32 touchdowns on 5 interceptions with 3,000 yards in 12 games played last year with 163.2 rating. There's a lot of concerns about his size and his weight, but he is an instinctive natural quarterback who excels. He's a very quick processor and throws very accurate out of structure plays. So I think he's the best quarterback in the draft. I'm going to say it because I think what he has is so intangible that a lot of teams could use. So I think for me, Bryce Young is the most intangible quarterback. You don't have to teach him as much as you would have to with maybe Anthony Richardson or Will Levis. And I think if you're looking at a team, a young team like the Houston Texans, new coach, new coordinators, everybody's new in the building. I think you're looking at him saying this is a home run and we have to take him and let him start. And if he doesn't pan, I mean, we're bad. So we just let it ride. But I'm personally saying I think Bryce Young is probably Houston Texans pick here. So I'm going with Bryce Young.
Yeah, I agree. There's nobody else really on the board. I mean, if they really wanted to, you can go away from quarterback and wait till the next year and see if you get another top pick, but you're not guaranteed to be that bad or get one of those guys. So I think you have to get a guarantee this year, and Bryce Young is that guarantee.
I mean, I will say though, if someone is coming to trade up, I mean, I don't know if I'd be so feeling bad if I'm the Houston Texans saying, but I think it is a lackluster division. So at the end of the day, you do have to look at it as, if we draft a quarterback, it does give us a better chance to beat the Colts and the Titans, who are two substantially bad teams last year. So Bryce Young is our pick. Just to clarify, I meant to say this in the beginning, we will not be making any trades that have not already happened because I don't know who's going to trade up. Dallas doesn't know who's going to trade up. So at this point, it's kind of just picking and choosing. We're only going to show the trades that have already been made in the past or before the draft. There could be a trade in the coming weeks or draft night that changes the whole landscape of this. It is totally possible that someone trades up to go get another quarterback based on the fact that CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, and the Colts will be picking a quarterback. Now, that leaves an interesting spot for the Cardinals, who are picking at 3, who do not need a quarterback. So, yes, they are contenders to trade back. But at this moment, I believe they're going to hold their spot. There's a lot of talent in this position. So, Dallas, who do you think the Cardinals are taking here?
This is a hard one here because I'm between obviously Jalen Carter and Will Anderson. Both of them extremely good. When you look at the needs of the Cardinals, D-line is on that list. So I think Jalen Carter, you have to go with a guy on the inside here. I know he's had some off the field issues. We're not going to get into that, but I think he's a tremendous player. If he gets in better shape, I think can be one of the best D linemen in the league in a few years. He's that good, very good instincts in the middle. So yeah, I think Jalen Carter is the pick here. But if you told me Will Anderson, I would not be upset with it either. I mean, both of them are tremendous.
So I actually picked Will Anderson. I believe where Will Anderson beats Jalen Carter is in the elite athleticism and his pass rush talent. If you look at what Jonathan Gannon did last year with the Eagles, he had four basically starting outside edge players / linebackers. So I think Will Anderson is going to fill the hole of where JJ Watt retires. And I think he's a blue chip talent. I think, he's a twitchy, hyper productive pass rusher that has a very explosive first step. He might not be in the ideal weight class that people are looking at for him, but he is definitely one of the best players. He had 51 tackles last year, 17 tackles for loss on 11 sacks. Very good player, very good production. I think that it's kind of I know we're in that like Jalen Carter had personal issue thing. And I just think Will Anderson is the surefire answer here. I feel like he's a can't miss with the teams right now. And I think that's why I would pick him. I think it's a lot easier to defend yourself if he has a bad season than if Jalen Carter has a bad season. You could say, hey, maybe he's just getting used to playing in the NFL, but Jalen Carter has a lot of other things that could be a problem. So I'm going Will Anderson personally. So I guess I don't know if there's anyone in the chat, but if someone was in the chat and told us who they thought, then we could technically settle this argument. But I go Will Anderson. I think that Jalen Carter does go down the board just a few more spots, though.
Yeah, I'm okay with Will Anderson here. Like, I don't think the Cardinals can go wrong either way here.
Now, up to the team that has been the crux of my personal life for the past few years. The Indianapolis Colts at pick number 4. I don't know if you all can see it, but they have a lot of holes they need to fill. Quarterback, wide receiver, tight end, no line. Basically, any position on the field could be fixed in this draft. There are 2 quarterbacks left here in our mock draft. Will Levis and Anthony Richardson. I know there's Hendon Hooker, but the Colts are not. We're not having the Colts trade back here. They're not pulling a John Schneider of Seattle who trades his picks every single year in the NFL draft to accumulate more. Personally, I'm at this position and I have to say it's Anthony Richardson. In the mock draft I'm reading right now, the Colts trade up to 3 and only give up a second or a couple third rounders and a 4th rounder this year and a 3rd rounder next year. But I think Anthony Richardson, if you look at it, Shane Steichen was kind of the project coordinator for a lot of quarterbacks over the past few years. Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts, 2 very efficient quarterbacks. He also worked with Philip Rivers in his time in San Diego. I think, he's exactly what Shane Steichen's looking for, a dual threat quarterback who has a lot of upside, bringing back that read option and run-centric scheme that highlights Richardson's abilities, but then also giving him the ability to kind of work through some of the stuff. I know there's some questions about his experience in the SEC. I've said that his accuracy and decision-making are very spotty at moments. But I think if you're looking at it, it's like kind of Will Anderson here. There's a lot. He was an 100th percentile quarterback and 40-yard vertical jump, broad jump. It's pretty insane what he does. He's uber athletic, shades of Cam Newton, I will say, but I think he could be better than Cam Newton because I think he has a little bit more athleticism that could kind of push him further down the line. And if he learns how to use his arm more, he could be fantastic. So personally, I'm saying Anthony Richardson is the pick here for the Colts, the best player available at this moment. I love Will Levis and I love what he does, but I just think that Indianapolis maybe isn't the place for him to be.
Yeah, with no trades and anything we're doing, Anthony Richardson has to be the pick here for the Colts. I don't see obviously we're not Lamar and all that. It can be interesting come draft night and leading that up. But without the trades and everything, Anthony Richardson will be the pick here.
Adam is very excited that Anthony Richardson is going to the Colts. We have Minshew, but I think Adam brought this up. I think if Richardson does go to the Colts, I'm starting him day one. No offense to Gardner Minshew, great guy, fantastic player, but just let this kid. I mean, we're bad. If we're bad, then we get a good draft pick next year, and then we get Marvin Harrison Jr. and blah 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 blah. I think Jacksonville is going to be the team to beat this year. So I mean, if we're the second or the third team in the division, it's not a bad place to be. But I think it has to be Anthony Richardson for the Colts. I did do a mock draft a couple weeks ago. He was an A- when he gets picked at 4 to the Colts. So it's a pretty good method here. The Seattle Seahawks. We have a lot to talk about here. I'm just gonna put my disclaimer down. Geno Smith does have an opt-out after his first year of his new contract that he got. So if he is looking towards getting rid or going away, you could draft a quarterback here. But I think you let Geno Smith ride. I know he's 32. There's some questions about how old he is. But he was really good in a team last year. I think for me, the surefire pick is probably Jalen Carter. Seahawks have been known to take players that maybe are a little rougher around the edges or maybe have some concerns about them, like Jalen Carter does. But I think if you plug him into this team, he's an uber athletic defensive lineman, something the Seahawks have been missing for years since the Legion of Boom. And add him into a team that has now Bobby Wagner behind him, you get a lot, and you allow Bobby Wagner to sit more in coverage than having him rush the passer. So with older legs, that is a helpful thing. So I'm personally saying that I think Jalen Carter is a Seahawk here. It's a surefire, can't miss thing for them here. So I go Jalen Carter.
I like it. Another name I have to bring up into this pick here is Tyree Wilson. I think the Seahawks could consider him. I think him and Carter, the way we have it right now, are probably going to go back to back, depending on obviously what Seattle does here. I think Detroit takes the next player available, depending on who gets taken. So, yeah, I'm fine with Jalen Carter here to Seattle.
I mean, I could go Tyree Wilson. I will say my only problem is Tyree Wilson's production has been a concern for me since the beginning of seeing his draft hype. I know he's uber athletic, like infinite upside, relentless motor kind of guy. I'm concerned though. I know he had a good season in 2021, had a good season in 2022. I'm just waiting to see where he goes. I'm between it because the mock draft I'm reading right now has Tyree Wilson going here. But I just think that Pete Carroll might say, man, Jalen Carter's out there. Yeah. But I'm actually going to say, I think I'm going to switch with you, Dallas. I think I'm going to go Tyree Wilson here. I just think that maybe they look at it and say, I think they're looking for Will Anderson. If Will Anderson slides somehow out of the Cardinals pick, they're going for him because uber athletic guy to get there in the gaps. So I think it's Tyree Wilson, and then I agree with you. I do think Detroit is in a can't miss mode here. I would love to say they draft a corner, but I don't think they need a corner after what they've done to boost their secondary. They could use their later pick to grab a corner then. So I think it is Jalen Carter here. This is where this mock draft has him. He is an interior penetrator, a fantastic player. There's concerns about his athleticism and some other things that happen. He didn't have that many sacks last year, only had 3 sacks in 2022 in 13 games. So kind of concerning, but he does create a pass rush presence. Pair him with Aiden Hutchinson. In Lions, you might be cooking here, guys. We might be cooking with gas for an NFL for a national. I call it national championship, Super Bowl. But I think you got to say that if Jalen Carter's here, you got to take him. You got to take him. I mean, Detroit has a history with maybe taking players that have some questions about them, but they always do seem to pan out. So I think Jalen Carter is here. I believe you agree, Dallas.
Yeah, I agree here. I think last year, obviously picking Hutchinson, this bolsters up the defensive line a little bit. I think this is where they go with the pick, no matter what, who's available on the board. Obviously, in free agency, they help sharpen up the back end with the corners. So the defense was obviously worse than the league last year. So you need to bolster up the defensive line even more. So I think it's a easy pick here between Wilson or Carter, whoever's left, and Carter is here on ours. So I think it's a pretty easy pick for him.
All righty. The toughest question I've had to ask in a long time. The Las Vegas Raiders made a decision a couple weeks ago to sign Jimmy Garoppolo to a big fat contract of 4 years, $100 million. If you are at pick 7 and you are the Las Vegas Raiders and you have Devontae Adams, you have Hunter Renfrow, you have Mac Hollins, you have a nice Josh Jacobs in the backfield, you have gotten rid of a tight end here, and you do not have a surefire defensive answer in the AFC West. Are you taking the swing on Will Levis? I am personally saying I do not think Will Levis will be taken here. I think Will Levis slides out of the top 10. Just showing my cards here, maybe a little too early into the show. I think they go with a surefire answer here and they take a corner. Which corner they take is a tough question for me to answer. I've had my questions about Devon Witherspoon in personal conversations with Brendan Wheat, who is the massive Illini fan of our club. But I think you're splitting hairs here between him and Christian Gonzalez, but I think Christian Gonzalez goes ahead of him based on the fact that he was a 98 to 80 to 89 to 98 percentile. And I think they're in a spot where they need a critical corner for this team. Rock Ya-Sin was great last year, but can't be guarding number ones in the AFC West. You can't be guarding Mike Williams. You can't be guarding Keenan Allen. You can't be guarding whoever the Chiefs have, Travis Kelce. You want someone who's athletic, big guy, and I think that's Christian Gonzalez. I think he fits what they need, and he's a great player. I know he only had one season where he was a great player, but I think he's someone who could definitely step up and be an aggressive corner that they have so desperately needed.
Yeah, I agree. They go corner here. I think you go Christian Gonzalez. Is just long, athletic. I don't think he's going to be as good as Sauce. Don't get me wrong, but built like Sauce, I think that's more like where the cornerback position is going to go in the future. Get these long, athletic guys out there that can pass break up from a good amount of distance away, so they can close distance quick. Tariq Woolen is another example of that. Long, athletic, speed, can close distance really quick. I think Christian Gonzalez fits the mold here for the Raiders.
I agree. I think he's I think you look at him and you say that's a surefire like corner 1 in 2 or 3 years. And I think that's the same case for Devon Witherspoon, but his height does hurt him a little bit. So I say that is Christian Gonzalez, and Dallas agrees. Now we're at pick 8. The Atlanta Falcons are a team who technically need a quarterback. Tell me if I'm wrong here, Dallas. If the Falcons suck another year, is there a chance that they're pick number 1? Because I'm only thinking there's like 3 really bad teams in the NFL right now that might be worse than them next year. Rhymes with the Commanders, rhymes with Rams, who might not even have a first round pick next year unless they trade for someone. Other than that, I think every other team in the NFL, maybe the Texans if they're bad, are a competing team to be pretty good. So, I mean, I think here you fix. There's been a playmaker problem in Atlanta for the past few years. Kyle Pitts, fantastic answer. They did lose Calvin Ridley, who was their point man at wide receiver position. They did draft last year Drake London, though, so I think they pair another wide receiver, a young one, with this team. I want to hear who you think you have because I don't want to give away who I have here.
Yeah, so obviously there's a lot of talk of who is the best wide receiver in the draft and so on. Obviously we see here PFF has Quentin Johnson ranked the best. I do not think he fits Atlanta. Having him and Drake London out there, I mean, obviously you can get two big targets for whoever your quarterback is, but I think they need somebody in the slot, and I think a lot of people have just discredited him because he was hurt last year and didn't play enough. But the year before, obviously outproduced Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. I think Jackson Smith and Jigaba is the best wide receiver in the draft. So I think that's where they go with the pick. Um, you can argue about Jordan Addison as well. Both the guys can play the slot, but I think Smith and Jigba is a very good route runner. So that's where I think Atlanta should go with the pick. It's Jackson Smith and Jigba.
I think Jordan Addison falls out of the first round because I think his combine time was not fantastic. I think he's a little smaller than we all expected, and I don't know if he's as good as we thought he was. Just saying. I'm just saying. I agree. It is Jackson Smith and Jigba. Just to show you all, though, there's a lot of variability here between who's getting taken here by Atlanta on a lot of people's boards. Tyree Wilson is a guy that I'm very out on, to be honest. I know Dallas is probably a big Tyree Wilson guy. He's great. He's fantastic. Or Miles Murphy. Sorry. Miles Murphy is who everyone thinks they're going to take. I think he's like a pick 12, maybe. I think, if you're Atlanta, you have a pretty solid defense. And you definitely need to put some chips together on the offensive side. So I think it has to be Jackson Smith and Jigba here. Very good guy, very athletic, can play like the slot, the 1, the 2, the 3, the X, the Y, the F, you name the position, and I think he's going to play it. So he's a great player. I think he's a surefire answer. And I think he goes off the board pretty quickly. So if you're Atlanta, you're saying we need him and we need him now. So Jackson Smith and Jigba. And then we are on to the Chicago Bears, a team who traded back in this draft. Such an interesting move they've made. Trade back out of position number 1. Of course, they don't need a quarterback. There were rumors they would get rid of their quarterback. But I think the Bears need something, and they need something bad. It is an offensive line to protect Justin Fields, and it has not been very good the past few years. Very average to poor. And I think they stay in the state of Chicago, or in the city of Chicago, and they go and get a man named Peter Skoronski, possibly the best offensive lineman in this draft. Whoever's saying that, he's fantastic. 6'4", 313 pounds, very agile, got smooth footwork, a refined technique, was a pretty high percentile guy in the NFL draft combine, with a lot of stuff in the high percentiles, 70% and above. I think he will be moved to play interior offensive line. I just think that's what the Bears will have to do. They need guards, but I think he's a surefire. The Bears need him, and he's a great player to have, an asset to have in a team like this, and will definitely help them become a better offensive line.
Yeah, I agree. The only other player I think they could consider here is obviously Devon Witherspoon from Illinois in the cornerback position. But I think when you look at what they need corner, they need tackle. I think the corner position, you can still get a solid corner in the later part of the draft. I think you need that good offensive lineman. A bunch of them could go off in the first to second round. So I think Peter Skoronski is the pick here. He can play pretty much any position on the offensive line. So having that versatility on a guy like that is huge, especially if a guy gets hurt or anything. You can move him around, and he can be just as good as any spot on the offensive line. So I think that's a huge piece for Justin Fields.
I agree. I think that is something that this team has been needing and will desperately fix here. Now we're at pick number 10. A team who was fantastic last year has a pick in the top 10. How did that happen? I'm just kidding. A lot of teams who are really good got a pick in the top 10. And a team that has been quite an interesting team to talk about coming around draft time. The Philadelphia Eagles. They were big losers possibly losing a lot of their key players, but they've been a great drafting team with Howie Roseman at the helm of this team as a GM. Let's look at the analysis first. They have quite literally one of the biggest and widest analysis. It does say they need a wide receiver, a guard, a center, a defensive lineman, and a safety. And I think personally they go defensive lineman, or you get your guy here. Your guy is a tough question here because you're looking at this list saying, man, these guys are all really good. You got Luke Van Ness, fantastic player out of Iowa. You got Nolan Smith, freaky athletic guy, destroyed his combine. You got Miles Murphy, who was supposed to go higher, was a projected top 10 pick at some point. So I think it's splitting hairs. What I'm reading here is that Nolan Smith is that kind of guy. There's questions about his undersized, but he was a 91 percentile, but almost in 100 percentile though in the athleticism. He has such a fantastic amount of athleticism, ability. He does everything this team needs. Luke Van Ness has also been a guy. I think he is going to be fantastic. I know a lot of people are concerned because he was hurt last season, but I think he's something that the Eagles need with a lot of their guys getting older. And they have another pick in the first round. So if they need a wide receiver or they need an offensive lineman, there's probably someone hanging out at pick 30.
Yeah. Whichever defensive lineman or linebacker is there that fits the Eagles mold. Obviously, they've been saying Nolan Smith fits it better than anybody. They really like him. So I mean, if you really like somebody and we're a Super Bowl caliber team last year, why not take a so-called risk and pick them in the top 10? So especially when you have a pick 30 going behind where you can pick another hole to fill in this team. So yeah, Nolan Smith is fine with me here. That's him.
I did show my cards way too early. A team who has been said to not need a quarterback by PFF. You need a quarterback, Titans. I'm just telling you. You'd be crazy in our draft here at pick 11. You see Will Levis. Will Levis is considered to be according to the shade of Ryan Tannehill, who is your current quarterback. The 35-year-old Ryan Tannehill, though, is going into the last year of his option or of his deal. So I think it is time, and you can see the Titans have kind of cleared some house here. They've gotten rid of some of those older players that were eating up a lot of the cap on the roster. So I think it is time they draft a quarterback. I know there was the conversation, well, Malik Willis should get his time. No offense, I think Malik Willis was a swing at best. It was a tough swing that they missed on, and they've realized this. But they're also a team that I think is in that 5-team range if you could be really bad next year and get a good pick. So I'm going that I think they take Will Levis here. I think if you're sitting here at 11 and you see a quarterback who is projected to go to the Colts at pick 4, slides all the way past all these other teams, slides past Vegas, and you're sitting here like, I mean, we're bad. We need a quarterback, and we don't really have an answer to that problem. And if Ryan Tannehill gets hurt, he could start maybe at the end of the season, or he could sit behind Ryan Tannehill and we could get rid of Malik Willis, or we could get rid of both and just let Will Levis go. I know there's wide receiver and offensive line things like they need to take these guys, but everyone I've seen said if he slides to the Titans, they're taking him.
I can see that. I can see them going the other way and maybe giving Malik Willis another full year. I don't know what their plans are really, but I think they do need another weapon on the outside. You can't just get a rookie quarterback and have Treylon Burks out there and nobody else. So I think this pick they probably end up go wide receiver. Now, who I don't know. This is tough, but I do think you see Quentin Johnson on the board here. It's hard to pass him up right here. I think he's going to be a very good receiver. Him and Treylon Burks can be a nice 1-2. And then, like you said, if they suck next year, they can go get a quarterback. But I don't know if getting a quarterback now is going to be a good idea, considering you have no weapons Obviously, next year you can go out, maybe get Marvin Harrison Jr., but who knows? I think Quentin Johnston's probably the safer pick here for him.
My only argument to this is the GM that did pick Malik Willis got fired. So, it's tough to say. I'm going to agree with you, though. I don't think they take a quarterback. I think Will Levis makes like the massive slide of like, holy crap, this guy was supposed to be a top 10 quarterback. Where is he going? He'll slide to another team. I might have another team in mind later on, but I do think Quentin Johnston is taken here. As Dallas said, they are in desperate need for a wide receiver, like really bad. So Quentin Johnston, this kind of changes what I think. Now you look at the Houston Texans, who were in need of a wide receiver, who wanted Jackson Smith-Njigba, want Quentin Johnston. Now you're stuck with maybe your third or your second option here. They picked up a tight end in the draft. They picked up a tight end in free agency in Dalton Schultz. They got a running back. It says they still need a QB, a wide receiver, a center, and a defensive lineman. And I think it follows suit here. I think DeMeco Ryans, the defensive head coach, says, you know what? We didn't get the guys that we wanted to fall to us. We didn't like who we had here. So we got to go draft someone. And I think it's the question between an interior lineman like Elijah Cansey, who tested fantastic at the draft or at the combine, or Luke Van Ness, who's been a threat, a outside threat that can add such a level to this defense that has been lackluster over the past few years. They did add a nice secondary last year in the draft, and an improving secondary. So I'm between Kalijah Cansey and Luke Van Ness. Dallas, who do you think they go for here? Or do they go Devon Witherspoon?
This is tough. I mean, their pressure was probably one of the worst in the league last year. I know the Bears were the worst in the league last year at pressure, but when you look at the Texans, who do they have on the defensive line? Really, nobody comes to mind. Last year, they drafted Stingley and Jalen Petrie on the back end, so you could really vamp it and go Witherspoon here, but I do think they need help on the defensive line. Getting an interior guy like Cansey is probably a good pick here, and you can get an edge later on in the draft or something like that. But getting an interior guy for the future is a good piece. The Houston Texans notoriously bad at stopping the run in division games. I mean, Derrick Henry goes 200 yards in every game, so I think you need
Jonathan Taylor.
I think you need a defensive interior guy like Cansey that can slow that down a little bit. So I think that's a good pick for him here.
I agree. The Jets, a team who is possibly not going to have their first round pick. But the Jets have been an improving team over the last year. I think they're probably at the best that I've seen the Jets in probably the time I've been alive, to be honest, other than that like weird Mark Sanchez era where they were good. It says they need a offensive tackle and a linebacker. I think they address their defense is really good. I think they just address the offensive line and say, hey, we're going to rip this Band-Aid off that we've been putting on for the past few years and just take somebody because we need them. And if we get Aaron Rodgers in the building, I don't want a 34-year-old quarterback hurt because he's getting murdered by Von Miller. What's his name? Oh, Matthew Judon. The very athletic amount of guys that are in this division. So I think they go Paris Johnson, one of Dallas's favorite offensive tackles here in this draft. Well, maybe. He is fantastic, 6'5", massive guy, or 6'6", 313 pounds, pro ready, light feet, has a great attitude about how he does things. He's an excelling player, and he'll just be better for this team and allow them to kind of have flexibility. He can play both guard and tackle too. He did it at Ohio State, so you kind of get a utility player on the offensive line.
Yeah, the Jets here, if they somehow, some way can keep this pick in trade for Aaron Rodgers, they go offensive tackle here. You go best on the board, and that is Paris Johnson. If he slides to them at this spot in the draft, yes, please. I would be gladly taking that all day. No need to waste time or anything. Lock in the pick for Paris Johnson.
Yeah. Rishi is agreeing with us, by the way, that he thinks Will Levis will slide quite a bit. This is a team that has been rumored in the past few days to be shopping some quarterbacks here. Ladies and gentlemen, they are in the market for somebody. Bailey Zappi and Mac Jones might not be the long-term solution here for Bill and the Patriots. Is this a time for Will Levis to go off the board? A guy who is with a Bill O'Brien, who's been a quarterback guru over his time in the NFL, like with the names of Christian Hackenberg. He's had success with some quarterbacks, but he's also failed pretty hard and fell flat on his face. What do they address here? I personally am saying I think they go Luke Van Ness or they go with an offensive lineman, but I think Paris Johnson going ahead of them. They attempt to address a defensive problem that they kind of seemingly had last year, and they kind of just let it ride with Mac Jones.
Yeah, I don't see them taking a quarterback here. I think Van Ness is probably the pick here. A lot of people are saying they really like Joey Porter as well, junior from Penn State in the cornerback position. So don't be surprised if they can go there. They could very well go there, but I think pairing up Judon and Van Ness is a solid way to go in the first round.
Exactly what I was thinking. They do have Devon Witherspoon at 14 on the mock draft I'm reading. Sorry, Devon Witherspoon. I know you are sliding a massive amount on our board. But, I think it's kind of splitting hairs on where guys go at this point. We know where guys should be going. But I think, as we all know, the draft night is crazy and wild, and a lot of things happen. The Green Bay Packers, a team who might be missing a quarterback in the near future. Are they the possible suitor for Will Levis? No, in my opinion. I think they're going to let good old Jordan Love ride it out a little bit here. They have been a notoriously bad defensive team, and I think they have drafted so defensively, though, in the past few years that I think they have to take a surefire offensive answer. And I think it is Dalton Kincaid, quite literally considered one of the best tight ends in this draft from every single thing he does. An offensive tackle is also in the conversation here. As they know, David Bakhtiari's been missing a lot of games, 23 of 35 possible games in the past 2 years. So it might be time to take an offensive lineman, but I think they know that with this team and the depleted roster they have of talent, they lost Robert Tonyan, they lost Alan Lazard. You're a very base team now on the offensive side. You're going to lose Randall Cobb, maybe. You're going to lose Aaron Rodgers. You have to take somebody here, and I think that Dalton Kincaid is a can't miss. You could say one of the wide receivers. I just don't think the wide receivers fit them, to be honest. You have Christian Watson. You have Samori Toure. You have a couple wide receiver options, but I think it is Dalton Kincaid here. They get their surefire answer at tight end. They get a considered possibly generational tight end.
Yeah, they need a tight end here. The defense got better as last season progressed. Obviously, during that winning streak at the end of the year, the defense got better. But losing Robert Tonyan is tough. So I do think you need to fill that hole. The receivers here, I don't see enough game-changing ability to draft one. This guy, Dalton Kincaid, has game-changing ability at tight end. So I think you draft him and pair him up with Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs. I think the offense is coming along here for Jordan Love, presumably Jordan Love. You don't know that for sure, but you got to give a guy weapons so he can play and see what he can do. I think Dalton Kincaid is that.
This has been the team that has been rumored to be moving around for Will Levis a little bit. They were talking about moving up in the draft, and then they were talking about not moving up. And it's tough. They have committed to Sam Howell being their starter next year, which is a tough way to say if Will Levis isn't here, we're not taking this guy. But I think Ron Rivera might be in that position to sit on his hands as well. They do need to address their current problem of an offensive line, which has been terrible, but also a defense, which has been okay. at best, they do have Terry McLaurin, so they don't really need to go get a weapon in the offensive game. They kind of have some decent receivers, a decent tight end. I think it's an offensive lineman here personally, but there's also a consideration that a corner goes here, and I think they go with a corner. I think they need to improve, and if Devon Witherspoon is here on our board, I mean, this is a can't miss, possibly a top level talent for a corner, with shades of Darius Slay, according to some people. I think it's Devon Witherspoon. He's a can't miss here. You can always address the offensive line, especially at the guard and center position this year in like the second and third round. That's where I would more address it than the first round pick.
Yeah, I think with a few of the top tackles going off the board and Skoronski and Paris Johnson, that you don't really want to go there here. So you got to address something on the defensive side. So Devon Witherspoon being here is for certainly a lock. And obviously, if he's not there in the real draft, I do think they probably end up going offensive line. But
I think they go Joey Porter.
They could go Joey Porter as well. So Witherspoon here is if you see Witherspoon on the board here, you're drafting him for sure.
Agreed. Let's move this down a little bit here. On to a team that I think could be getting better this season. I know Dallas hates when I say that. The Tennessee Titans, the Pittsburgh Steelers, a team that has been improving over the past few years. They picked up a lot in the way of the free agency market. People could say they need a quarterback. People could say they don't need a quarterback. I think, though, there's a surefire pick here. There's only one pick, in my opinion, and it is Darnell Wright, offensive tackle from Tennessee, with shades of Morgan Moses at 6'5", 333 pounds. He's just going to roll people over for Najee Harris to get through holes, and he's going to help Kenny Pickett not get murdered. He did not surrender a sack in 895 snaps that he played last year, according to PFF. He is a bruiser in the trenches, and something that I would say Pittsburgh's been missing the past few years in offensive line.
Yeah, Pittsburgh needs offensive linemen. Najee had nowhere to work last year. Kenny Pickett struggled. He had to move a lot in the pocket. They didn't really allow him to just set and throw too much. When he did, he looked actually decent. On the move plays, he didn't look as good. So I think you have to go offensive tackle here. Darnell Wright is probably the best on the board here. So yeah, he is a great pick here for Pittsburgh.
The Detroit Lions are back up again. Oh my goodness, where are they getting all these picks from? This is their technical pick. The other pick they had was from the Rams, who made a very fatal mistake of trading for Matthew Stafford and possibly could be kicking themselves right now. I don't remember who we took earlier. We took Jalen Carter. So is it time to address the offensive side of the ball? You know, you got some good targets at wide receiver. You did pick up Marvin Jones. You got Amon-Ra St. Brown, but you lost DJ Chark. Or do you go tight end here? You know, you did lose TJ Hawkinson in a trade last year, a great trade, I will say. And you have a lot of tight end talent still hanging out on the board right now. Let's just open up both, actually, because I can do both. So you got Michael Mayer here, considerably one of the best tight ends in the draft, someone who they were very high on, and a lot of people were very high on going in to the process. Is it time to take Michael Mayer here?
Yeah, I think you look at the needs at the wide receiver position. I think they're okay there. They have Amon-Ra St. Brown. They have Jameson Williams. They got guys that play well in their system, like Khalif Raymond. He plays very well with Detroit. The things he does, the post routes and all that stuff. So I think they're fine. So I think they do need to address the tight end position here. And getting Michael Mayer here will be a home run pick for Detroit. Having that type of offense with him, he can run block, he can catch really well. This pick will be unbelievable. Can be just as good as TJ Hawkinson. Probably a better blocker. TJ probably has a little bit better hands right now, but Michael Mayer can develop into one of the best tight ends in football in a few years. I think this is an amazing pick for Detroit.
6'5", 249 pounds. He can roll people over just like Darnell Washington can. but he also has that ability to get out, stretch plays, be athletic, great hands. I think he's a fantastic player. He's a prototypical wide tight end for a team like this. And I think if you're looking at it, Dan Campbell, he likes those hard-nosed guys. And Michael Mayer's been a gritty guy since he showed up to Notre Dame's campus. So I think Michael Mayer is a surefire answer here. They address a position in need, and they get a pretty good tight end. This is the team I have been maybe holding Will Levis around for. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers did retain a pretty solid defensive structure, I would say. Offensive line, got some questions. Tight end, maybe some questions. But you did pick up a one-year Baker Mayfield option. So if you're looking at this, you're saying, hey, we got Baker Mayfield. We don't have to start this guy, but if Baker doesn't do well next year or Baker does well, we got Will Levis in the building. I think this, for me, is the only team left to take Will Levis that doesn't go into the second round.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I think they probably end up taking offensive line here, but I'm okay with Will Levis getting taken here. They say need is tight end. I'm not in agreement with that. Cade Otton played very well last year for Tom Brady, so they definitely don't take a tight end here, even if one of the top names on the board. If Will Levis slides, they could very well consider that. I think it's going to be if Will Levis slides or offensive line. That's probably the only two they take here. So yeah, if we want to go Will Levis here, I'm okay with that. Okay.
I think it's Will Levis. I just think he's a great talent to have, and at the end of the day, if he doesn't work out, he doesn't work out. So Will Levis is our take at pick number 19. He finally goes off the board. Adam said if they finally pick a wide receiver in the first round, he's talking about the Packers. When they lose Rodgers, I would laugh for hours. I believe I would be doing the same. I don't know how Will Levis or I don't know how Aaron Rodgers is gonna feel about that, but hey, the Seattle Seahawks, who have been a very interesting team, they do have 2 first-round picks. I think they end up trading this pick. If somebody wants to move up for somebody here that's hanging around like Joey Porter or Brian Branch or somebody who was supposed to be that meshing piece of a team. I think they need someone here, so this is where they move up for him. But I think if we're looking at it, you have to say that they're probably addressing their offensive line here. This is who they have on the board here on offensive line. I thought DeJuan Jones would be my guy to go if the Buccaneers don't pick Will Levis. So he's here. I think you're saying great, but you did just get 2 guards you did just get 2 tackles in the last draft who are high-end talents. The report I'm reading says they take Bijan Robinson. I don't think you need to do that. You have Kenneth Walker in the building. But I'm actually going to flip and say they build a defense this year. They have a pretty solid offense. I would say a wide receiver here might be a helpful thing, but I think Myles Murphy's still on the board. And I think you go, hey, this guy we were looking at in the top 4 picks is still hanging out here. Why not take him? Or, who's saying that we don't need him? It's a great player, a fantastic player to have in the building, I think. And I think you have to take him if he's here.
I completely agree. I think you look at, I think we had Tyree Wilson with them in the first round. So on the edge side, if you pair up another edge in Myles Murphy, that's unbelievable. I think you can also go with his Clemson foe, Brian Bresee here. I think one of those Clemson guys is obviously not go wrong pick. So I don't know what the better pick here would be. They're both outstanding.
Now that I think that we did pick an edge earlier, I think they would go Brian Bresee here, just personally. He's also a fantastic player, fantastic inside guy. I think he might just, I'm going to say it. Don't everyone hate me at home. I think he might be as good as Jalen Carter, maybe a little bit better. I'm just saying. I'm just simply saying that he did not play at Georgia. So we might not be getting the national hype he got. But he was pretty impressive in his combine stuff. So I think if you're Pete Carroll, you're like, we just hit the home run on defense. We can go draft some guards and some corners and second and third round because that's where all their ADPs are, and I don't think anyone else is going to move up for them. So you get to build a defense, and you get to build your Legion of Boom regen defense basically, and just be dominant in an NFC West that might not be very good next year. I'm just saying. You can stop the 49ers running the football on you and running read option with two guys. So Brian Bresee is the pick. Of course, the Dolphins forfeit their pick due to I don't remember what they did, but they did something bad. The Chargers, God, Chargers, you guys are killing me. Honestly, I keep telling myself every single year they're a Super Bowl team. They're a Super Bowl team, Alex. They're going to be great. They're going to be fantastic. They did return a lot of their players, but there is a current problem. A gentleman named Austin Eckler wants out of the building, and I think he's a draft night special. I think he's a guy that you say, hey, I know you need a running back, and I got this guy who's been fantastic, but he just wants more money. I'm not willing to pay it. So you could take him. They also do need a linebacker. I think that's something you address later in the rounds. Linebackers really aren't at a premium this year, other than edge defenders, and a lot of those guys are on ball, not off ball linebackers. So you don't really need them unless you're a run stopping team. A corner, Joey Porter's here, so maybe you take a swing and go grab one. But you did go get corners last year. I think you have Asante Samuel. You have good enough corners for maybe a couple more years that you wait around and hang on to those guys you have in the building. Safety, and you have Derwin James. You got Nasir Adley did retire, so maybe you take Brian Branch here to be that utility player on your team. But I think it is a surefire answer that they take Dallas's guy. They take Zay Flowers here. You get your third big receiver. You pair him with a Keenan Allen and a Mike Williams to just give another dude to throw the ball to. A tight end would be a good pick here. I'd say if Michael Mayer was hanging out around here, I would take him. But I don't know if the tight ends here are really what they're looking for. So I personally say that I think it is Zay Flowers. I think he's the next wide receiver to go off the board, just based on his skills and his abilities.
Yeah, I really like this pick. We don't know how many more years of Keenan Allen we're going to get at a crazy high level. Having Zay Flowers learn from Keenan Allen for 1-2 couple years is going to be brilliant. Having him in the slot can play on the outside. Obviously, you're going to have Big Mike on the outside. Justin Herbert's going to throw the high ball to him, but he needs another guy in the 5 to 10 yard range. And Zay Flowers can catch and run after the catch, break tackles. He can do a bunch of stuff. This is a really good pick for the Chargers, considering it, like you said, the defense is still pretty solid. And if they really want to draft another corner or linebacker around 2 and 3 is a place to do that. So I think Zay Flowers here is a solid pick.
I agree. I did put that into a PFF mock draft simulator, and I think I got an A on that one. So a team that has been interesting, a team that is in the saga of not having a quarterback, blah, 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 blah. Lamar Jackson might not play next year. He might sit. We all have talked about it enough. Who cares? We're talking about the draft. Baltimore Ravens need a player. They need a defender. I don't know if they need a wide receiver. I'm saying here that I don't think who they see on the board is what they want. If Zay Flowers slides here, I'm all over that. I'm jumping on that like all day long, any day of the week. Zay Flowers is exactly what they need, a big physical wide receiver. But I don't think they address it because they just never address the wide receiver problem. They'll address it in the second or the third round. I think they go corner. I know Marlon Humphrey's fantastic. I don't think they have a corner 2. I think they can use a corner 3. They kind of struggle. They did draft Kyle Hamilton last year, so that kind of rules out them taking a safety. An edge defender would be fantastic. They did lose Calais Campbell, who's one of their big offensive off-ball or kind of on-ball, off-ball guys. But I don't think, other than Miles Murphy, your edge position's really not stacked here. You got Deonte Banks, who was a fantastic combine show out. Joey Porter, who's still hanging around, who's been a fantastic player that everyone's wanted to take. I just don't think they can pass up on Miles Murphy, though. I think they got to go. They say, we need him. We need him now. And we got to take him here. If he's still hanging out here, well, why are we not taking him? It would be a critical mistake for them not to do that. To add him to a already stacked defensive line. I mean, they have Roquan Smith. They have a pretty good team, but add another guy in. You make that defense pretty invincible. And if you don't have Lamar, you can stand on that defense and have a league average offense with Tyler Huntley or Joe Flacco or whoever you pick up to go play quarterback.
Yeah, as much as I hate the Ravens, this would be an unbelievable pick for them. I'd hate to see it. I'd hate to see it. I would not want to face Myles Murphy twice a year in division. Just wouldn't want to see him. He's going to be that. He's going to be that good. He's going to be an impact player straight away, no matter where he goes. As long as he plays a lot, which I think he will, wherever he goes in the first round. But yeah, this pick, that would be an unbelievable pick for the Ravens.
I agree. The Minnesota Vikings. You have so many holes that I can't even explain anymore. Like your whole defense just got annihilated because you just cut everybody. What I'm seeing is they take Jordan Addison here. I am very opposed to that. You have Justin Jefferson. You have KJ Osborne. You have TJ Hawkinson. You have Dalvin Cook and you have Alexander Madison. Why add another offensive player when you literally had the worst corner play in all of the NFL? Like you had some of the worst corners. And you have sitting in front of you right now, Deonte Banks, fantastic corner, athletic guy, Joey Porter, someone who was supposed to go way earlier in this draft that has now slipped and slid all the way to you. You'd be an idiot for not taking them here. And I think it's splitting hairs on who you take, but I think Joey Porter is considered a better corner in many people's eyes. Great player, fantastic, big physical corner, something that you can put a mainstay in your defense on. So I go Joey Porter because I think they have enough safeties. I know they have Harrison Smith returning for like his 80th year or whatever. So I mean, you have him in the building, but I think you got to go Joey Porter here just to make sense that you've addressed your corner position. You can address your safety position later in this draft, maybe get another corner later in this draft too. Defensive lineman later in the draft kind of deal. Wide receiver, I think there's really good wide receivers in the 3rd and 4th round range, actually. So I would say Joey Porter here. Lock it in. I mean, you're laughing all the way to the bank on this one if you're the Minnesota Vikings.
I agree. You take Joey Porter here. I think you take probably a corner, whoever's left. If Deonte Banks is there, whoever's there at corner, you probably take in the 1st round. You pair him up with a guy you took in the 2nd round last year, Andrew Booth, who was hurt towards the end of the year last year. So I think Andrew Booth is going to be a very good corner in the league as long as he can stay healthy. On this other side, you pair him up with Joey Porter, have 2 very young corners out there that I think can develop really well. I think that can fix a lot of things for Minnesota, have a couple good corners out there. And I think they obviously go defense probably almost the rest of the way. Maybe they pick up a receiver late in the draft, but I think you got to go defense most of the way here because defense was your problem last year, not the offense.
A team that I don't think has many holes, but PFF is saying they have a bunch. The Jacksonville Jaguars are in need of supposedly a guard, a center, an edge player, a defensive back. I want to see who's in the guard and center question, because then maybe I would say, hey, it's time to address that. Yeah, those are all 2nd round guys. But Osiris Torrance could be a mover up into the 1st round. He is really good. Steve Avila is kind of the same question. Like if you need it, you take it. But I think you're looking at the teams behind you. I'm just kind of doing the eye test. Other than the Eagles, you might get one of the guys that might be between them and the Saints are the only 2 teams I'd say, hey, they might move that pick. They might move up and grab a guy there. So I don't think you grab anyone. I want to look at edge again because I don't think anyone's back in 2nd round edge players max. Like these guys are lucky to be 1st rounders. They'd have to have a really good grade from a team, but I'm looking at this. There's I believe a very, very, very good amount of players. Looking at the top 3 players here, you have Deonte Banks, fantastic player. But I think you take Brian Branch. I think you take You take that guy you need. Play the corner, he can play safety, he can play strong safety, he can play nickel, he can play anything. He's basically a utility player in baseball who plays the whole infield. You can throw him out anywhere. He'll do his job. He'll do a job very well. I think he's a fantastic player. I don't think he goes this late in the draft. I think he goes earlier. I think the Packers are the team that would take him, but I think the Packers realistically should be addressing offense. So I would say Brian Branch here is my take. Surefire, top end player by I think the time year 2 or year 3 rolls around. He's a great guy. Fantastic player too.
Yeah, adding to the back end, which was no really star names on the back end last year, but a very good back end. You have a guy who I think played like one of the top corners in football last year, and Tyson Campbell. He's just going to keep that play up. Adding a guy like Brian Branch to help on the other side. You can leave Tyson Campbell one-on-one. I think he can hold up pretty well. Getting Brian Branch to help on the other side, whoever's over there, I think is going to be a great pick. Like you said, you can move him around. You can play some corner too as well. I think that's going to be a great pick for Jacksonville, and probably easy division winner right there in Jacksonville Jaguars. I think they can make some really good big noise in the AFC this year.
I agree. On to the New York Football Giants, I don't know how they made the playoffs last year. I'll be honest with everyone at home. Alex is very concerned on how they made it to the playoffs with a terrible wide receiver room. So speaking of the terrible wide receiver room, Jordan Addison's hanging out here, and my man is saying, "Hey, I know you all don't have a wide receiver. I'm supposed to be really good. I know there's some questions. I mean, you got some decent wide receivers in the building right now. You got some guys who probably should be starting next year. I think it's a no question here. You go Jordan Addison and say, hey, we needed him, and we got him."
Yeah, I agree. You look at the receivers there. I think there's probably one other guy that you think here. I mean, you have the big guy in Hodgins. You have I don't know. They still have Slayton or something like that. Yeah, I don't know when Wandale will be back off the ACL. You don't know that, so you say, well, those guys are pretty nice intermediate guys. The only other guy you have is Jalen Hyatt if you want that deep threat ball down the field, the street guy. I don't know if that's their best bet here. I think Addison is probably the safer play.
I agree. On to the Dallas Cowboys. Ooh, yeah. I would say they were a winner of the trade deadline. I can't lie, guys. Like I thought they added a lot of good pieces. But I think there's one glaring thing here that we've all missed. And as someone who's been projected to be in the top 10, Bijan Robinson's hanging out here. You just got rid of Zeke. You got Tony Pollard on a franchise tag. You might not get him back, depending on how he plays, which he's played out of his mind. Bring the Texas kid in. Hey, he's a fantastic runner, big hard-nosed guy, can catch out of the backfield. He can do everything, I think. And you get him for basically nothing, I feel like, in this draft. In our draft. You're really the only team other than the Bengals who I can see needing a running back. But I don't think the Bengals will address a running back because they just don't do it. Sorry, Dallas. You know that though. So I think Bijan Robinson's the surefire pick here. Maybe they need a defensive lineman, but I don't think there's anyone left here that isn't second round. I don't think there's a linebacker that isn't a third or a fourth round guy. So I think it's Bijan Robinson. Jerry Jones is laughing that he got him. He's like, you idiots, you shouldn't let this happen.
Bijan to the Cowboys would be Cowboys. I mean, they always find a way in the playoffs to lose a game by Dak Prescott. Can he play well enough? This would be the year if they draft Bijan. They have the weapons around. They have the defense. You have probably the best rusher. You have the best rusher in football, Michael Parsons. You have these guys. Adding Gilmore next to Trayvon Diggs. I know Gilmore's not what he used to be, but he can still play a solid piece. Um, this will be the Dallas Cowboy year. This is make or break year for the Dallas Cowboys. That's the Super Bowl roster when you look at it. They have enough pieces to go after it. So adding Bijan to this mix is just make the offense more dynamic. It'd be him and Pollard back there at the same time. I know they love to use Zeke and Pollard back there at the same time. Bijan and Tony Pollard back there at the same time is a lot more scary.
That's that I'd be peeing my pants. I can't lie. I'm lining up. I'm in my 3-point stance, and Bijan Robinson's game. I'm like, and then you get back up again after he runs for 10 yards, and Tony Pollard's checked into the game, and you're like, oh, is he gonna throw this? He's gonna run this? Like, so yes, Bijan Robinson. There was a question about tight end here, but I thought Dalton Kincaid would be the one that would slide to them here. But we had him going earlier because I think he's a great talent. The Bills technically on paper, according to PFF, need a defensive back. I think they do, but I also could make that argument that I think they need a wide receiver with the current Stephon Diggs weird situation that's going on in that building. And the fact that they don't have I think they don't have the wide receiver talent to compete. I think they could use a slot guy here. I know they got rid of Isaiah McKenzie. I mean, I'm here for the conversation of a wide receiver, but I also am saying if I'm sitting here and I'm them and I see Deonte Banks is still hanging out on the board, I'm like, hey, why not? We need another corner. We drafted one last year. It actually turned out pretty good in Kyrie Lamb, but I think he's a slot player at max. I think Deonte Banks also could be a slot player, so you either have to decide one of them is going to learn how to play the true corner position, and the other one's going to be our slot guy or our nickel guy or our dime guy. But I think they definitely need to improve a secondary, which is aging, a very aging secondary.
Yeah, I think Banks is a very solid pick for them here. On the receiving side, I don't know. There's some guys left, Josh Downs, Tank Dell, but are you going to take those guys in the first round is the thing. I don't know. So I think Deonte Banks is probably the safer pick here. And go
Emmanuel Forbes, I mean, he's getting a lot of pro love. That's another guy I think I can argue with here and say, I really do think, though, he belongs in the conversation of, hey, we need this guy pretty bad. Like, he's a big guy too, got a lot of good pass breakup experience. I mean, I think it's pick and choose, but I will say I think Deonte Banks tested crazier than Emmanuel Forbes. So at the end of the day, I think he will get the pick. So, but on to Dallas's alma mater. Dallas, not really your alma mater. We're looking at the tight end room. I think this is the position they need to be addressing. I could have said running back because Joe Mixon did just get charged again on re-aggravated assault. So a corner might be nice here. You are kind of getting towards the end of the Chidobe Awuzie tenure and possibly could lose him. Also could use some safety help, but is it a tight end here?
I think when you look at the needs, tight end is correct. The defensive back is correct, but they're missing out on the offensive line part. I think you really want to go in here on the offensive line. You just got Orlando Brown in free agency. You know who I love in this draft to put on the other side. It'd be amazing. Obviously, La'el Collins is still with us, but torn ACL at the end of the season for offensive lineman. Highly doubt he's going to play at all in the next season. He probably will not be ready. It's going to be very hard for him to get ready. So we're going to need another tackle over there. I mean, the guys that played over there played okay, but then when they got into the big game against the Chiefs, you saw how much they struggled and the Chiefs dominated them. I think a tackle is in need here. Not going to lie. I hope they either go, as a fan, I hope they go with offensive line. If they don't go with offensive line, I think you go with the tight end position. So it's really pick and choose. I love DeJuan Jones, and if the tight end's there, We've seen some mocks. Michael Mayer slips down. Who's going to slip down? Darnell Washington is a guy that can block at the tight end
Luke
spot.
Luke Musgrave, though, that dude is ridiculous. I may say ridiculous.
A
And
lot of guys they can pick here.
shades of Tyler Eifert. Shades of Tyler Eifert. Just saying. Just saying.
But
Hopefully,
yeah,
it
I'd like
doesn't
to
bust
hear.
like Tyler Eifert did. But like, hey,
I'd like to hear what you got because I really can't choose like one
um,
here. It's
I
so hard,
really
man. It's
like
tough.
Luke. I like Luke Musgrave, and I'll give you kind of some reasons I think he's good. Um, he's a really good player. He's a pretty athletic guy. He did only play 2 games last year with an injury, so that kind of held him out from the combine. He kind of missed their COVID year. Um, he just had a rough year, but I mean, he did have 477 yards. He is a high production, with a very high potential, pro ready frame at 6'6", 253 pounds at 22 years old. Is an explosive athlete who can get away. He runs routes really well, long strider, dangerous in the deep crossers and corners of the field. But I think there's a top tier quickness missing. In the short area, he's more of a build up runner than a twitchy guy. So he's not going to get off the line. He puts in the effort as a blocker, but will need to bulk up. You are going to be playing some high end talent and the AFC North. And I just think there's a lot of variability with him. So I think if you're looking at it and you're saying, hey, we're probably going to end up losing Jonah Williams in a trade. Let's get another guy in the building. I think you can't miss here. And you say you take a Dewan Jones, who I think is better than Broderick Jones and Anton Harrison. Other people say different because they think differently. But I think Dewan Jones is fantastic. You pair him with an already great offensive line, and you have a young offensive line that now has the ability to protect Joe Burrow, who's going to get a big fat extension next year. So you cover all your. I mean, like Dewan Jones is the second best pick here. I mean, I don't think a defensive lineman goes here because I don't think you like anyone enough. So I think it's offensive tackle, and I think Dewan Jones is a great pick. I did PFF mock draft him last night or yesterday, and I think they got a B plus on him. So he's a good pick for where he is. But now down to the New Orleans Saints, who I think are quite literally terrible. They have Brian Breesy in this pick. He's not there because he went way earlier. Actually, what I'm seeing, we got rid of some of these guys really early, clearly. Brian Breesy's not there. They lost David Onyemata, Shy Tuttle, and Marcus Davenport in free agency. So they do need to stock back up on the defense. But I think you're looking at either corner. I think you're looking at a corner here, actually. I think Emmanuel Forbes is your guy. As we all know, just really haven't had any reliable corners for the Saints the past few years. Injuries, just bad play. You got to take a guy here, and if Emmanuel Forbes is hanging out, a guy who is somehow mocked in a lot of drafts to go above some of the other guys in this draft. If he's hanging out here at his true value, I mean, you're kind of stupid to not take him, right?
Yeah, I think a corner here for the Saints is good to pair with Lattimore and one of my favorite underrated players in the league. I know he's getting better, Paulson Adebo out there for the Saints. He's getting getting
He
better,
needs to
man.
play the slot though. He has to play the
I-
slot. That's where he
I-
had so much success at Stanford was
Yep.
covering big slot receivers.
I really like Adebo a lot. So you get another corner to help him play the slot more. I think that's just a big plus for this defense who really struggled. They struggled on the back end last year a lot. When Lattimore was out, they're really Adebo, had to cover their best guy, and he's not a true number one. So getting more depth there is what they need.
Ugh. Sorry, I had to put my computer on the charger. It was dying. But yes, Emmanuel Forbes, fantastic player. I think is a great guy to have here. Maybe they go a different way. But like I said, I think guard and center is a position that round 2 and 3 are very easily taken at. So on to the Eagles, who have their next pick. Wow. I need to go look at this Eagles roster before I make this decision because here they have them taking Brian Branch. Who did we take earlier though?
We took Nolan Smith.
Nolan Smith. Interesting. I think they go interior offensive line. I think they go Cyrus Torrence here. He's a really good player, very close to his to his true value here. A wide receiver would be fantastic, but I do think that what they use for their wide receiver 3 is okay. It is an in-house guy that will become their new offensive coordinator, so I don't really think they're going to change how things are done, unless there is a wide receiver here that I think is like. My problem is they're too small. Rashee Rice, I think, is great for his value. Jalen Hyatt, no matter what people say, he needs to hang out at like pick 50 max. He's not a early pick guy. I know a lot of people have him going to Buffalo. Kayshon Boutte, he kind of had a bad combine. Some of these guys down here, they're just not. They're guys that you can take later on in this draft, and I think you'd be happy with taking on later. Guys that fill holes and do things that you need. But I think here you're looking at it saying, hey, we need an interior offensive lineman. O'Cyrus Torrence has been fantastic. He was really good for Anthony Richardson. For anyone who did not watch Florida, I actually like highly rate the guy because he's a great defender. He kind of helps protect the quarterback really well, and I think is a great offensive lineman. The Eagles have a tendency to draft a lot of their offensive linemen on in-house stuff. I think they'll end up taking a center in the later rounds. Luke Weipler would be someone I would say, hey, pretty good guy. Take him. But I think it's O'Cyrus Torrence here. They need to fill a hole. They lost a couple of their guards. They also had some guard injuries and some of their guards are aging a little bit. So now's the time to take someone in and have them sit under the wing of one of those guards and maybe end up playing plug and play here, but nothing too massive.
Yeah, some of the guys on the offensive line are getting older, so I can see them very well drafting one just to replace and down the line. And this is a very good pick for pick 30 here. Not too much else they need, obviously, in the Super Bowl, so you don't have too much needs. You haven't lost a ton. You got most of the guys back you wanted back. So this pick here is a solid pick.
Sorry, Rishi was saying that Bijan goes earlier, but I didn't think that a team needed Bijan that early. Also, Rishi said this man Dallas said, luckily La'el Collins is still with us, like his life is in danger.
Oh,
that's funny. I like that. That was pretty funny. But you've agreed on O'Cyrus Torrence, correct?
Yep.
All right, good. Now down to the Kansas City Chiefs, the Super Bowl winners. They have a lot of very minimal needs, I think, here. I will say maybe replacing. They did pick up an offensive tackle, though. They could use a wide receiver, but like I said, I think the wide receivers are a lot of small guys. You did just draft Sky Moore, and that didn't really pan out. So let's kick over to defensive line plus edge. Will McDonald's a good choice here. Somebody that's been pretty highly rated, but I think there's another guy that a lot of people are actually missing, and where is he? Is he deep in here? Keon White has someone who's been moving up and down and kind of all around in this draft. He is a pretty explosive edge rusher, but they do need to double down, I think. Steve Spagnuolo loves his options up front, and he's a pretty freaky athletic guy. A lot of people, love to have a guy like that in the building. I think Will McDonald, though, at the end of the day, might be better. Yeah, he's pretty explosive. He can play strengths. Maybe you take him over him, but what do you think, Dallas?
Yeah, I think it's a tough spot to be in. Like you said, most of the receivers are on the smaller end, which they need a bigger receiver to replace the loss of Juju. So I don't see them taking one of those small receivers. They have plenty of those. Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore, obviously. So I think you go on the bigger end, probably in the later rounds, and take a swing at a guy. So a guy like Will McDonald here would be very good, very solid pick for them.
Alrighty, and that does wrap up our first round. I'm gonna save this actually because I would like to have this because I think no matter how wrong people may think we are, I think we're actually very right. And I think this is actually going to hold pretty true to where it'd be pretty funny, though, if we got every single pick right, because then I could seriously gloat about this. But I think, this is a pretty good draft. I wish we could see I wish I could see the grades. That's the only thing I'd like to see. But you can only grade if you pick per team. So we'd have to go back through and grade it like posthumously. But also we do have some breaking news. Just thought everyone might want to know. Caleb Love is announced that he's going to Michigan. So that's a great thing. This week's hot takes though, Dallas. I decided that maybe we should keep it in the NFL draft here. Just give me a take about the draft. It's not going to be one that pans out now. It might be one that pans out in the future. But you got any takes on maybe a team that does great in the draft or a team that shocks everybody in the draft?
Man, this is a tough. I was trying to think about some hot takes earlier, and I was like, this is very tough to see what's going to happen, whatnot. But I think guy that slid very far. I'm gonna keep it to one guy here. I start of the year, you thought he was probably the top corner in the draft, and that was Keely Ringo from Georgia. He's very slid down the boards a lot, so I think I'm actually going to hot take and say he slides back up into the first round and on the actual draft night. I don't know who's going to take him here, but I say he goes. We'll make it a hot take and say the Chargers take him at 21. It most likely will not happen, but I could not think of any other hot take that was remotely decent. That just came to mind first.
I've seen the Colts mocking him. I've seen Colts mock drafts taking him at like pick 30 something. It's early. It's a high second round pick. Got some hot takes. I think the Seattle Seahawks will have quite literally the best NFL draft out there. I think they are the team that I may have to lay it out pretty soon what my NFC championship looks like, because I think I have a crazy one that a lot of people don't see. But I think the Seattle Seahawks will have one of the best drafts. I think they'll get one of the highest grades after, I think night 2. I would say by like the middle of night 2, everyone's like, oh my God, the Seahawks are building a team. They've hit on good draft picks over the past few years. And no matter what direction they go in, if they choose to take a quarterback at 5, they're making a good decision. They have a good team. They literally lost nobody on their team, but gained people on their team, like Julian Love. And I know you got back Bobby Wagner. Like, great. Bobby Wagner's back in the building. Like, he's gonna retire there after next year. He's got a big, nice little contract on $7 million. But I think it's a good team, and I think they're only going to improve, and they're only going to pick positions that are going to help them in the long run. So I think the Seahawks are possibly one of the best draft teams. I have another one. It's hot. I can't see it happening, but we kind of predicted it. I think Will Levis might take a slide on draft night. I think that he's projected to be a top 7 quarterback, a top 7 pick right now. I think he might go past pick 20. And I might say that Hendon Hooker slides into the first round if all these. Actually, I'm going to say this: if Will Levis slides, Hendon Hooker moves back in the draft. But that was a fun draft show, Dallas. I can't lie. I enjoyed that. It was a good show. I'm hoping everyone at home enjoyed it as well. We will be back next week. I do not know what we're going to be doing next week, but we'll be there. Also, I do need to make a. I did lose one of my Masters guys from last week, Dallas, which is kind of hurting right now. I can't lie. He pulled out of the field yesterday because of an injury, so I'm crying a little bit on the inside. But hopefully, the two other guys I have, one's projected not to make the cut right now, so I will be rooting for him to make the cut. But we'll be back next week. Maybe some NBA playoff talk. I don't know. Do the playoffs start next week?
Let's see actually when the play-in starts. The last day of the regular season is on Sunday, so I assume the play-in will be starting by then. Yeah, the play-in is actually on Tuesday and ends on Friday. So
Okay, so we'll have our
starting.
we'll be ready for the playoffs to officially start. Because I don't really call it play-in. It's kind of like the NCAA tournament when you play in. You're not really in the tournament, but you're kind of like pseudo in the tournament. But we'll be ready to do that. Hopefully everyone has a great weekend. Go and enjoy Masters and everything that happens, and we'll be back with you next week. But I will see you later.